20th episode of the Knitting Spring podcast. Welcome back to my studio apartment here in Manhattan, New York. I am Tonya, also known as Cheeky Monkey on Instagram, Cheeky Monkey 1 on... No. Let me try that again. Cheeky Monkey on Ravelry, Cheeky Monkey 1 on Instagram, Tonya on GoodReads. I had to read it on my show notes because... And you can find, you're most likely watching this on YouTube, but you can also find my podcast on my website, knittingspring.com. That is where all the show notes are. You can contact me by leaving a comment below in the YouTube chat or my email, which I don't know if I've ever given out, but I have one. It's Tonya@knittingspring.com. And thank you everyone who's been welcoming back to podcasting. I have been sticking to about a once a month podcast. I know it's even a long time in between podcasts for me, but at the moment that seems to be working out. And I've had a lot going on, and I'll talk about that at the end. Nothing exciting, just life organization stuff. So I will get into the knitting. I actually have two half objects, and I need to find everything. I just threw everything on my desk here. I have the first one, which I'm really excited about. I think I'm getting better on the lighting, but it's a slow process. Let me dig it out here. I have finished my, I keep forgetting to do the couple ribbings on the thumb, but obviously that's going to get finished. But I finished my first moth mitt. I love this thing. I absolutely love it. I haven't blocked it yet, and I'm going to block it because I'm using US 1s for the entire mitt, but the top with the color work feels a little snug. Not so that I can't get it on snug, but it's definitely not going to fall off snug. And then I realized there's two things. It's my waist yarn and my ends. So here it is on, and I forgot to go down to a 0 on the ribbing here, and it sits nicely on my thumb and everything, but I can feel a little snugness right here, and I don't know if you can see, it's pulling a little bit there, or at least I feel like it is, or I can really see it pulling in there. So that will get picked up a little bit when I do the ribbing on my thumb, but I think I'm gonna block these. And also feels, I guess it's not crooked, but I keep feeling like it's crooked, and I keep messing with it, and you're probably sick of me messing with this. So let me talk about this. So I've knit this on US 1s, and it comes down actually pretty far on the wrist, and it fits really good on my wrist and forearm. So I am using, this is the Underwing Mitts by Erica Hauser. I'm using the black in here is Gloss Fingering by Knit Picks. It is a wool silk blend. And then it's actually, for wool silk, it's a really budget-friendly yarn. And I really like it. It's really soft. I'll let you know how it wears on something like a mitt or whatever. I am going to be making a shawl out of it coming up, and I'm going to talk to you more about that later in the podcast. And I've knit this on US 1s. And I'm wondering, because the bottom, the palm of my hand, that color work is nice. It feels flexible. It's a little, you can still pull it out. There's still a little bit of flexibility in there. So I'll probably stay with the 1s. I'll probably do 1s on the palms. Then I might go up to a 1.5 for this main color work part. So I know I used 0s on the cuff. Then I went up to 1s, and then up here you can see it's a little floppy. I I forgot to put ones for the ribbing at my fingers, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm pretty happy that I did. I finished one, so I'm really happy with it. It's beautiful. Oh, and the mauve sort of it looks beige on the camera, but it's more of a pinky beige. It's a pink beige. There's an undertone in there. The camera's not picking that up. It looks beige or a light gray and black, but it's Tega by Vine, and it's in the Volca base, the merino cashmere nylon. So I'm really happy with the first one, and you can see it sort of gets, when you take it off, that bothers me, but I have so many things going on. Maybe one day I'll take it off and go back and tighten that up, but I still haven't gotten to the little rib on the fingers, which I'll do zeros in, but or maybe I should do more ribbing, pull back and do more ribbing on the top. I did what the pattern called for, but it's flopping, and it is bothering me a lot. So we'll see what happens there. And then I haven't cast on for the sixth one. Oh my God, I just looked to see if I talked about that for like the past 15 minutes. I haven't cast on the second one yet because I have been trying to, and I really should, because I was picking this up in and out between working on these other two projects. And that one of them's the exploration station. I'll talk about that after I show you my other half object. So I've gotten a little bit done since I've talked to you last, which was about a month ago. And this is my Neon Now vanilla sock. It's Neon Now is a Plymouth yarn. Yeah, Plymouth yarn. I try to keep all this stuff in here. Plymouth yarn, Neon Now, and the color, does it have a color? I don't know. Color is 360, but made in Italy. But I really like this type of yarn, this sort of, what they call it, virgin wool and nylon. I really like it for socks. It's, not, I think I said this before, not that I don't like the cashmere or the regular merino wool socks, but just knitting this up, I really enjoy working with it. It's not super soft. I mean, it's not gonna scratch or anything, but you know, you probably wouldn't, you wouldn't wear it against your face, but on your feet, unless you're a Princess in the Pea type, you'll be fine. But one of my favorite pairs of socks I made probably 2 years ago is one of the Regia, the self-patterning ones, and I love wearing those. I love knitting those. So I've got one done. I keep all of my detailed recipe notes for my socks in my show notes. On my Ravelry page, my project page. And I think I try to copy them over every time I start a new sock. Not only if somebody else wants to look it up, but for myself, so I can remember, you know, and I don't have to go back like 6 socks to find it. And sometimes I tweak stuff here and there. I think beginning of this year, I tweaked a little bit on how I did my socks and was trying to get the perfect fit. But what I'm knitting now is the perfect fit for me. And I have a high instep. I have a very high instep. I have high arches, and then the bone, your instep is that bone that goes from the top of, from your toes that connects up to your leg. That part, there's a steep. Mine doesn't level and then go in. Mine's a slant, and then I also have high arches, so there's a deep area there. And if you want to see how I specifically make these, just check out my show notes. I knit these on, the tops are US 1, so the top of the foot's US 1. The bottom of the foot is a US 0, so 2 millimeter on the sole of the foot. Top of the foot is a 2.25 millimeter needle, and then the yarn. And then I use a combination of the OMG heel and Sockmatician. I think his name's Nathan. I'm really bad with names, so I doubt he's watching me, so, but still, you know, it's nice to call somebody by their actual name and not make it up. So I use a combination of his and Megan Williams' OMG Heal. And that's also in the project page for this. So you can click on this, and I tried to be detailed about that. And I thought I caught everything, but I just saw there's a, you probably can't tell. You can barely tell, but there's just a tiny, tiny opening right there, right here, where you're joining it together. Nobody but me is going to notice that, and when it's on my foot and this is inside my shoe, nobody's going to see that. But I do wear my socks with my Birkenstocks all the time. I wear closed-toed Birkenstocks in the winter, not when it's snowing or rain. Oh no, one day I got caught in the rain, and this was like the best thing. I had my leather Birkenstocks on, a pair of wool knit socks on, and it was the only dry part of my body. Everything else was soaked. It soaked through I got caught out without an umbrella, and it was pouring rain, and it soaked through, you know, those quilted sort of like barn jackets you get like at LL Bean or whatever. They're that diamond quilted jacket that's sort of for winter. The rain's completely soaked through that jacket. That's how far I had to walk in the rain, and how hard it was raining. And it was not by choice to walk that far. I was out in Brooklyn, and where I was, there was no trains, and I'm not familiar with that part of Brooklyn, and I was trying to get a car, and I was trying to walk under stuff, but I got soaked. But the only dry part of me and what was toasty were my feet with my hand-knit socks. So, yay, hand-knit socks and Birkenstocks. Now, I don't know if that was luck or probably because I didn't step any big puddles, but, you know, but still, you know, nothing, though it was a really good combination for that unfortunate day. So I have cast on. I sort of do these, but I have like an outline for my podcast, but I sort of do stream of conscious chatting with you guys. It sort of just runs in my head and what I'm thinking about. Here's my wee little tiny toe that I've started. And I'd like to get through the increases on the toe so that I can just pick it up and knit over the weekend, and I'll talk about that. I wasn't feeling well, and sometimes just when you can't concentrate, you just want to knit around, and even though you're on a shawl or whatever, even going back and forth on a long row is just like too much for your mind or body or whatever to handle however you're feeling. And just that little tiny project that's not heavy, it's light, you just know you're knitting. At least for me, that's how it works for me. That's sort of how I feel. You know, you just can pick it up, put in a few rows, and knitting really does make me feel better. It's something I can tell that it's something that has calmed me in a way that I haven't been since my mom passed away. I'm still a pretty go with the flow kind of girl, woman. If a man called me a girl, I'd be upset. But myself or another woman, as long as it wasn't derogatory, I have no problem with the word girl. Sometimes woman just, maybe because it's psychological and we're in this youth-centric world that girl sounds more pleasant than woman, but I'm a woman. You know, I've been one for a long time. But anyways, that's another rant for who knows when, probably never. No one wants to hear that. And then I lost track of what I was talking about because I went on a rant. And this is how I am always. So knitting makes me feel better. And the other thing that makes me feel better is walking. And I'm sort of talking to you today. I'm a little tired this week, and I'll explain why. And maybe this chitter chatter. I'm on Benadryl histamine medication, by the way. So I'm probably a little bit more disjointed than usual. But knitting really does make me feel better. I definitely have a feeling that I haven't had for a real long time. And even though I take my medications for the things that I need to, but I really think it's helped with my blood pressure. It's helped with me not dwelling on things. I used to be a person who dwelt on not in bad stuff. Why can't I dwell on like the good stuff? Like go over that again and again. Well, sometimes I do, and I'll go over that. But more often than not, or at least I, will think of something, or I get scared about something, or most of our anxieties come from fear. So you are constantly running that loop, and I don't do that as much anymore. And knitting has transformed that for me in a way that nothing else has, except for walking. And as much as I love walking, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's late, sometimes it's cold, but I find time every day to knit. I try to walk a little bit in the morning, but if my bag's too heavy, or I try to go to the gym and walk on the treadmill. I've gotten better about that. But, there's always something that can get in the way with exercise. And probably not for everybody, because I know people follow exercise regimens, but that's one of the things that I push is not a priority. But knitting, I do. And as much as I love walking, like I love walking through the streets of New York, that is the type of walking I like. I go to the treadmill and walk on it in the gym because I need exercise and I want to exercise. But it's not something I can say I particularly enjoy being on a treadmill. Now, I love walking through the streets of New York. I love putting my headphones on. I love walking. I try to walk every morning 10 or 20 blocks, and I think 20 blocks is a mile. So I try to walk a half to a mile every morning before going to work, before getting in my ride share. I don't do it every morning, but I try to do it, I'd say 60 to 75% of the time. That's probably a pretty good. So 2/3 to 3/4 of the time I make time to walk. And it's not far, doesn't take long, and I like doing it. But knitting has been the one thing, and just being able to work on that sock or work on my Cozy Memories blanket for my niece. I haven't worked on that in a while, but I have done my socks. So my next project that is a work-in project, so after talking about that a little bit, I have the next thing on my needles is my exploration station. Now, let me see. Let me find the front. So, you can see, let me see if I can get this down for you to see. So, this is hard. Let me see if I can. I just pulled stuff off the needles. Trying to show you. Sorry. Here is sort of where I am. And I am on the last section. I was way far down. So there it is. So where that hanger stitch marker is, that's where I was the last time I podcasted. And then I did the brioche section, and I did that in Madeline Tosh, Joshua Tree, Eurosock, and Homespun House, Xenophilius Lovegood describes the Deathly Hollows. So that's my brioche. And then the next section is the I Heart Daryl by Lolo Did It, and Budgie by Hedgehog Fibers. And then the next section, and these last three sections, I love them. I absolutely love them. This last garter section is Homespun House, Xenophilius colorway, and I Heart Daryl, Lolo Did It. And all the yarns are in my project page. And I just had like this much left of Daryl, and Xenophilius. And then I had more of Budgie left over, but I've split those up already and put them in my niece and nephew's cozy memories. Like, I have little pouches, I think I showed you one of the episodes ago. And then this last section is the chevron section. And what I've done on here is I've added, I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to look and show you. I've added beads. You can probably see those beads in there. Let me do that. Yeah, you can see it. I was just making sure it was not blurry. And let me see if I can stretch it out. Yeah, you can see that better. I'm trying to look. I feel like a cat looking over. And so I put beads on the chevron section. And how I'm doing this for the chevron section is, you know, the chevron comes down like this and it goes down like this. And I don't have the pattern. But anyway, so at the top where it's close, I did on each side of the decrease. And then the next front of the, so I'm just doing it, I'm just putting beads on every other row. So what's considered the front of the shawl, that's the side I'm adding the beads on, or the row I'm adding the beads on. And then so I did the first two on each side of the decrease. The next right side row, I did two out from the decrease. And then the next row, I'll do 3 out from the decrease and then 4 out. And then I think I have 4 more back and forth. So I have 4 more repeats to go, which is the back and forth knitting. And because there's 28 stitch repeats, but row repeats, I have 4 more row repeats to go. And I had to order more beads because I didn't realize I was going to like these beads. And when I bought these just at Michael's, and I just picked them up because I wanted to have a bunch of different beads in my stash to have. And that's one of the things I love about stashes is that it allows for spontaneity. I'm not encouraging anybody to have a stash. That's how I like to work, because I like to, when I'm working on something, you know, everybody likes to have their own little bit of creativity. And I'm going to talk about that in another shawl that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I have a lot, I'm telling you, I'm talking about. And then, so I added beads to this. And then also the other change I'm making, and these are the only 2 changes, and adding beads really isn't a change. I'm just putting them in, and I really like beads in a shawl. So, and I would buy, I haven't done this in a while, but I would buy t-shirt dresses from like Old Navy or the Gap or whatever. And I would just, because, you know, Banana Republic, Old Navy, and Gap, they're all owned by the same company. And, you know, the Banana Republic ones would have the real fancy stuff on them. Well, what I would do is just go and I would add like sequins along the top and sew on some seed beads on the pocket in like a little design. And it, you know, made the t-shirt dress a little nicer and more like the Banana Republic one they were selling. And all it took me was like, I don't know, sewing on sequins is like the easiest thing. I think that my screen just froze for a second. It was probably still recording, but to me it froze. And it took like, you know, not even a half hour to sew on sequins to a t-shirt pocket. And then adding the seed beads was probably another half hour. So like an hour worth of work. And I'm pretty sure I got those t-shirt dresses at Old Navy, and they're like they were like $10. So, so the other thing I'm changing on this is I'm not doing the I-cord bind off. I'm going to go, once I finish the 4 rows, I'm just going to do a knit row and a purl row, and then I'm going to bind off that way. And I'll see if one knit back and forth is enough, if I think I need another one, but I'm thinking a knit back and forth will be fine, because this is I'm going to be stretching out the points of the chevron anyways, so when I block it. And the only thing that'll hold me up finishing this, but I'm pretty sure the next time I record, which will be before Christmas, so maybe, because I ordered beads tonight, because I realized when I bought the beads, I didn't buy them for this project, and I needed more beads, because 28, 56, it takes 56 beads per row, and I ran out of beads. So that's that. Okay, what's the next thing? The Park Slope tee. Now, I haven't made a lot of progress, but I've made progress since I've talked to you last. I didn't split for the sleeves until the last time I talked to you guys, but I have since then. And this is definitely going to be my next focus after I finish the exploration station, or if I'm on pause waiting for the beads, then I'll be working on this. Because this sucker has a long way to go. And this is my Duck Wool Park Slope. It's called the Park Slope tee, but I'm making it into a tunic. I just feel like the this variegated yarn long as a tunic, I've said this the last time, will look better as and anybody who's, not going to go back and watch or just watching this one, it's going to be a better line on my body with all this variegated going straight down to mid-thigh with a legging, as opposed to cutting me off. And I still wear my sweaters pretty long, but I just think it'll look better straight, long, with a tunic rather than cutting me off as a sweater. And so yeah, I've split for the sleeves, and it's with the needles on, it's just under my bust. So it's probably, you can't see, so it's probably like right down there. That was a good shot of me. So this is what I just go round and around on this, and my goal for that is to have that finished by the end of the year. So I have a month, which is, something I've already started, and the sleeves will be, I don't even know if they'll be as long as these sleeves. These sleeves go down to my elbow, and I'm not sure. I might cut those a little bit, maybe mid-bicep on this one. I'll see how I'm feeling, or if I will go all the way to the elbow, because that's just, I can't wear that in the summer. That one, yeah, no, because I can't wear my other tunic that I have in the summer either. So it'll probably, I might make the sleeves down to the elbows, but I'll see how I feel about the putting more variegated on my sleeve. So that's that on that. And then I have, one more thing I'm working on, just something that I carry. I think the last time I showed you, I just had a toe, and I've only made itty bitty progress. I had a creative recharge event for our my office, and I work in an architectural firm, so we got together for a day and thought about how we create things and stuff like this. And as there were different lectures going on, I had these, and I went up to, instead of my typical 1 and 0 needle, I have a 1.5 and a 1 needle. And once I have this finished, this first one, which I think will be fine, because I told you the last time I had a 0 and a 1, it was too much. This feels better. This feels more like my Neon Now socks, because I believe this is a fingering weight. I mean, a sport weight. So, and I didn't realize that when I was making these. And I have this much left, which I'm glad I make shorty socks, because that's all I'd have for these anyways. And that's fine with me. So that's it for what I'm currently working on and what I'm focusing on. Oh, the Park Slope sweater. Let me talk about real quick. I skipped over the nitty gritty. So the Park Slope sweater is, I'm making it into a tunic, but it's considered a tee, and it's by Laura Ayler, and I'm using Duck Duck Wool Merino Silk Fingering in the color After Party, and I'm knitting mine on 3s. Now, this sweater was knit on 4s, and I love how it fits. I love the sweater. It's my black sweater I finished this summer out of Skeiny Dipping, Marrakesh, Cease and Desist. So that's what this is. It's wearing really nicely. It is by far my go-to hand knit sweater. One, because it's black. I only wear a t-shirt under this when I go to work because my office is so overheated that even this loose tunic sweater, loose hip-length sweater can be too hot some days. So I have to wear a t-shirt underneath it. So if I get too hot, I can take it off and have something, just a cotton tee on at work. Some days it feels like it's 80 degrees in that office. I remember one winter it got so hot in there and I was working late and I had I had something like a tank shirt on. I went all the way down to tank shirt and I was still not cold. So, and it's steam heat in that building. And if you know anything about steam heat is really effective. It is so warm. You will never be cold with steam heat, for sure. And then the exploration station, I am knitting that on US 6s. I probably could have gone down to a 5s, but I like really loose and drapey shawls. And I'm doing that on 6s, and I said I was making it, it's by Stephen West, Madelinetosh Euro Sock, Lolo did it Plush Sock, I Heart Daryl, Hedgehog Fibers, Skinny Singles, Budgie, and Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows by Homespun House. And so prescription strength Benadryl I have going on, I feel like I'm bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball. And my system is different than everybody else's, where Benadryl, it makes me sleep, but it also makes me, when I'm awake, very hyper. I am definitely diagnosed by 2 different physicians as having ADHD, and even painkillers will make me stay up all night if I don't have the right one. So I'll get insomnia rather than sleep from them. So medications works with my chemistry very differently. And so I feel like I'm pinging and ponging this whole time when I'm talking to you, and I know it's the medication. I can feel it in my brain because I'm stopping and thinking 2 different things, and I'm not going linearly like I hopefully normally do. But anyway, so my gauge. I knit this sweater on US 4s. I'm knitting my Park Slope tee on US 3s. And it's still drapey. It's still nice. And I think I'm going to like this fabric better. I was worried that it still would be too loose, but I think for a fingering weight sweater, it still has a nice drape to it. It's still light. It'll still flow nice on me. But it also doesn't have, like, you can see through this sweater. You can't because I have something on underneath, but if you hold it up and you just look through the one layer, you can see right through it. That's how open the gauge is on the 4s. Now, technically you can sort of see through this, but you wouldn't be able to see like my bra through it. You would be able to see my bra through this one, but not this one. It's not snug, like no light's getting in. It's not opaque. It still has a translucency to it, but it's a tighter gauge, and I think it's going to work better. So I think 3s for sweaters is going to be where I'm at going forward. Okay. This new shawl, the Goldfish Memory Shawl by Casapinka. Yeah, there's no... so this is the pattern, and it is, I'm trying to see without showing anything if there is a picture. I'll show you the diagram I made. So as you can see, it's a parallelogram. this shawl. And what I've done is, there were a couple sections I didn't like that were these garter, there were these like fat garter welts. It wasn't my style, or it just didn't feel right for me. And it's obviously not that I don't like garter, because I love this. And this last section here that's like my favorite is garter welts. I'm loving that just fine. But it was just the way it was feeling just didn't feel right to me in here. So I have a link to this in my show notes. So if you want to see exactly what I changed, how I'm making it, and I don't know if you can link stuff like this in Ravelry, but you'll be able to see what I changed in my pattern. So I went through the different sections, took up some sections repeated, and the whole point of this shawl is that it says on here, it says, there is an urban legend that goldfish have an attention span memory of 3 seconds, the time it takes to circle a goldfish bowl. Sometimes I'm like a goldfish when knitting, and I'm ready to move on to the next thing or color fairly quickly. This pattern is an excellent solution for those goldfish knitting moments when you want to change to things fairly quickly. And they do. This is, her diagram says that the shawl is about 75 inches long, give or take, and probably like 15 to 17 inches wide. I like the shape because I have one that I did by Lisa Much that I wear a lot. And I'd like to get something else in the rotation for that. And I have a Yowza weighted shawl as well. But I'd like another one of those long scarf-like shawls that I can wear under my jackets. Because the Exploration Station will probably be one that I use at home just to throw over my shoulders, keep me warm. And I don't have anything like that. So that'll be something for that. So I'm really excited about that. This and some of the different things that I'm changing the pattern into, and as I go through it, I'll show you what I'm doing. But I went through this book. I own this book, the Up Down All Around Stitch Dictionary, and I went through and changed some sections or changed some things around in this shawl. And she repeats the lace in one section, and there was only 2 sections of lace. And I wanted to balance the shawl out with 3 sections of lace, and I didn't want all 3 sections of lace to be the same. So I am doing, one of the sections will be the lace that Casapinka's written. I think the last section will be the feather and fan. And then I found this on, I can't remember, but I'll put it in the show notes where I found the feather and fan, because the feather and fan wasn't in that book. And it's called also Old Shale. But I'll put this in the show notes. And this is what I'll be doing on the last section. And then I'll be doing either this amphora lace in one of the sections, or this easy lace, that easy lace. So I haven't decided which one, and I need to figure that out, because that's like the second or third section that I changed. Here's her picture, and there's the diagram. So, oops, sorry. And it was a couple of things like she repeats these giant welts. That's one of the sections that I'm changing. And I think I'm keeping in the skinny welts. And the lace is charted in this picture. And then I am going to be adding in this herringbone stitch. And I will be changing colors every 2 rows. So, because this is replacing one of the stripe sections. And so I will be following the, color 1, color 2, but in the herringbone pattern. I am also putting in an interrupted garter stitch pattern for one of the garter ridge sections. So I tried to keep the spirit of what she was doing, but just substituted so that every section was a little bit different and wasn't repeating. And then I'm also doing one of the sections in the smocking stitch. And I'm also doing this garter zigzag that will go like this. So there's a lot of garter in there, and so I tried to keep the, oh no. Oh, it is this way. It is up and down, but that's fine. That doesn't bother me. It will be like this. So that will be a section. So there's a lot of garter in here, and I'm trying to keep it in that same flavor. And then the yarn I'm using for this is Knit Picks. I told you I was coming back to gloss fingering eventually in a very circuitous way. So this is Knit Picks gloss fingering, and give me a color. Velveteen. So Knit Picks gloss fingering velveteen. This is a 3-color shawl. I suppose you could add more colors. There's no reason why you couldn't, but I'm following again her suggestion. And the second color is Knit Picks gloss fingering, and this is Hawk. And then the black, Knit Picks gloss fingering black. So this will be my shawl, these 3 colors. And I really like the nice muted tones. I have a, my Lisa Mutt shawl is actually pink, gray, and black, but this is a much more toned down version of these 3 colors. I mean, these 3 colors are just sort of what I live in, and it'll go with everything, and I know I'll wear it all the time. I wear it, my other one, it's was blocked before I put it away last year. It's over on my hook, ready to wear when it gets cold enough. I've still been wearing just my small handkerchief, but I think that's going to be changing in the next couple weeks, that I'll be moving over to bigger shawls to wear under my jackets. So I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited how I switched the pattern up a little bit, and all of this will be, as I'm working on it, I haven't started or even cast anything on yet, but the diagram will be in this week's or this month's show notes in case anybody else is interested in changing up or whatever. It'll be there forever. And it calls for US 6s, and this one I'm going to maybe go to 5s, but I'm not sure. I'm going to block out my exploration station on 6s and see how I feel about that. And then if I think I could have gone down to a 5, I might go down to a 5. Okay, so the last 2 sections I have are books and life stuff. So if you're interested in reading or hearing about what I'm reading, stick around. If you're just wanted to know what I was knitting on or working on, thanks for watching. And so on to books. I am reading currently, as of this recording, November 27th, 2018. I am currently reading The Cruelest Month by Louise Penny. It is her Inspector Gamache. I don't look at my show notes. In the Inspector Gamache series, these are really well written. I like the characters. I like the charming town of Three Pines. There's a lot I can say about this, and they're a nice little book to read. I really enjoy reading them. They are reminiscent of Perot a little bit. They definitely have an Agatha Christie nod to them, towards Hercule Poirot with Armand Gamache, but in a modern setting and in a different way. He's a different man, but there's a lot of similarities. I could see writing a compare and contrast book if you were an English major on these two characters. And then I'm also rereading, I read this book over 10 years ago, easily, is Mr. Darcy Takes a Wife by Linda Birdall. I am listening both of these from my New York Public Library, Go Libraries. And this has been a slow month for reading for me. I was sick, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, but these two books are very good. I'm enjoying them. They're, for me, easy reads, and I can sit back and enjoy the continuation of Elizabeth and Darcy. And it's been long enough since I've read that book that I remember the gist of it a little bit, but I can't really remember all the details about the book. So it's kind of nice that I'm rereading it again, because I don't even remember how it ends. And I know there's another one after that, and I can't remember what that one's called, but I'll probably either buy it or borrow it from the New York Public Library and listen to that again. When I read this book for the first time, this was the only book out, and I really like this sequel to Pride and Prejudice. It is, I mean, there's no gratuitous sex or anything in it, but it is definitely more sexual of a book than Pride and Prejudice was. It's, talks about being in a marriage and how you feel about somebody and your intimate relationship with them, and where Pride and Prejudice sort of hinted, she definitely takes you into the bedroom, and it's very well written. It's a really good read. I really like her take on everything. And I have another Pride and Prejudice sequel that I want to read, which made me want to pick this up again. And there was another reason with my storage unit that made me want to pick up this book again. And then my two favorite reads that I've read this month, my favorite read, one of my favorite books of the year, is Where the Crawdad Sings by Delia Owens. I was more than happy, thrilled to read this book. I mean, truly a 5-star book. It deserves every single bit of hype it's getting. It is an ode to the marshlands and nature, and there's a little, there's poetry in the book through the main character, and a lot of the book is sort of seen through this girl's eyes, and it's a book about loneliness and survival and strength, and there's so many layers to this book. There's a mystery that happens to it, but it's secondary. It's definitely a subplot to the book, and you find out at the end, the very end, but it's just, this girl in nature is just the most wonderfully written book that I've read this year, and one of the best I've read in a couple years. I can't say I suggest everybody read this. And there's so many feelings and joy and sadness and emotions that go with this book. It's hard for me to speak them out loud. I probably could write it down better. I'm definitely not a public speaker or an orator by any stretch of the imagination. I probably could write something, and I wrote a few notes in my GoodReads review, and I definitely gave it 5 stars. I didn't know, I went in, I barely knew what the book was about, and I try to give myself as little bit of as the least amount of knowledge that I can about a book, because I like going in. Sometimes they give too much away, just like they do with like movies and stuff, and I like going in and discovering, and there was just not 1 minute that I did not enjoy of this book. The only criticism I saw of the book, I'm going to wait if anybody wants to talk about that, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. And I read that review after I read the book, so it might give something away, so I'm not going to talk about that. If you want to read reviews on the book, you can. I read the review on Kirkus Reviews. I have a little bit. I don't think their review was exactly right. That's the review I'm talking about. If you read the book and you want to go and read it, I think she was a really remarkable girl, and I thought it was told in a really believable way and not in a fantasy way. Really, really good. And there's 2 characters in there who help her that I fell in love with, and I thought they were just the dearest people. Okay. If I talk any more about it, because I'm just skirting this around with broad descriptors, and I don't want to get too much into it. And I keep saying that, and I keep talking about it because I love that book so much. I could talk about this book for an hour of the podcast. The other book that I really enjoyed was Silent in the Grave by Deanna Raybourn. This is another mystery novel. I think this is a novel that is a little notch above the historical mystery genre. It's a historical fiction. They consider it historical fiction mystery because it takes place in the late Victorian era, probably around, I'd say late 1880s, early 1890s. And, usually books that you read sort of in that genre are sort of, not that they're not good. I read a ton of mystery books. I love mysteries. I love thrillers. If you've sat with me through a few of these book reviews I've been doing the last 3 episodes, you can tell that I really like mystery and thriller books. But this one, her writing is really a notch above a lot of the other authors that I've read. I think she's a very articulate writer. I think she has a lot of imagination. I think she's an intelligent writer. I like her storylines. I like her characters. I like her sense of place. I like that she's sort of pushing the boundaries, which makes me feel like that it is how in, God, what's that book about the sisters? It's right on the tip of my tongue. It's with the 4 sisters, and it's in the movies right now. Gosh. You're all probably screaming at me what it is. It wasn't my favorite book. Anyways, in that book, the 4 sisters, the March sisters, are transcendentalists. And they are, which means that David Thoreau was a transcendentalist, which it was a different viewpoint or spirituality other than Christianity, which was they were leading outside of their life was a little bit outside of the norm of what other other citizens in the United States were living at that time. That book takes place, I think, during the Civil War and then maybe through the 1870s. The only criticism I found about this book is that they made her too liberal, but the author states that she lives in sort of one of these families that is a little bit on the outside. They're a little bit like hippy-dippy, artsy, sort of one of those very eccentric, wealthy families. They can get away with it at their time period because of money. Great wealth gives you a privilege to be a lot of things, lets you step out of the norm of society there can be consequences to it, but because they have so much money, so there's ways around it, and she frames it in a way that gives her independence, and it's believable. And I really like it because she's a woman who is taking charge of herself and thinking about life, and she learned a lot in this book and is very self-reflective. You can see her journey of self-awareness, and it's one of those authors that that doesn't just tell you. A lot of authors will say, this girl's intelligent, or she's very smart, without showing you through action. And which is fine. Some books, it's fine. You just, they're smart, fine. But this author takes it to another level where she shows you that she takes you on your journey. You go through her mental process, and I really enjoyed that. It was something that I really liked. I liked her journey of not just she's young in the book. I think she's probably 28, and she's finding herself and becoming more self-aware. She's figuring things out, making decisions, talking to people, thinking about things. And I mean, she's still at the beginning of this journey, but you can see where she's going, and it's exciting. And there's obviously a romantic interest in there, but there wasn't a happily ever after at this book, so it's continuing. And when I get to the next book, I'll let you know how I enjoyed that one. But this first one in the series, and I think it's her Lady Julia Gray series by Deanna Raybourn. And I know she has another series that I think Curious Beginnings is another series. And then I'll start reading that after I finish this series. But this Silent in the Grave was in my Audible romance collection, and it's still available on there if you have Audible romance collection. Like I said, Audible romance puts a lot of books in there. It was very, very good. And I highly recommend that if you like mysteries and a little bit of romance. Romance isn't really the focus in this book, but there is definitely romance in this book. And then I haven't read anything unlike last month where there was 2 books I was deeply disappointed with. This month there wasn't. And I'll put a list of everything I read in the show notes. This was a slow month. And the reason for that is I told you we went on a creative recharge. Well, one of the spaces we were in was an unfinished space, and I am very allergic to, my skin is very allergic to dust and mold. So I was exposed to this space, and honestly, it's been so long since I've had an allergic reaction like this that it didn't even occur to me. And I got a bad allergic reaction from the dust or the mold that was in the air. And it was enough that just it being in the air, with coming into contact with my skin and being there for so long, it caused reaction. My whole chest, this whole chest area was covered in blisters and hives under my breasts, down probably from mid-shoulder blade to just under the bra strap was covered. My arms, my legs, I was just covered in hives. And of course, like the first, reaction you got is like, there's all this stuff. I mean, I just went right off the deep end. Like, I got some weird strain of measles because there's this, people in Brooklyn that weren't vaccinating, and I was in that area of Brooklyn, and, so after a couple days of, it not going away, because I was like covering myself in any kind of cream. I was so itchy. Oh my God. It felt like bugs crawling under my skin. It just was awful. It was so awful. And so I went to the doctors. It's, it was allergic reaction, and it was from coming in contact just in the air. And I could have touched something too and touched myself. But, I didn't obviously touch my back. So there was something in there that my skin reacted really badly to. I don't swell up or have trouble breathing or get stuffy. It's that reaction. So he put me on, I don't react well either to steroids. I don't like taking steroids. I know a lot of people don't like taking steroids, but I have a bad physical reaction to steroids. So the doctor didn't want to put me on those. So he put me on prescription histamines, which is like prescription Benadryl. And so getting through work, that was rough, getting through work on that histamine, because as much as it's making me hyper, at first it really knocked me out. Like, I was sleeping like 12, 13 hours, and I was waking up still groggy. So I would go through these cycles, and I'm just, I'm getting better with sleeping. Not as much because I have to take the pills for a month. And that's been rough. And I didn't knit a lot with that. I tried to knit, but I was just either really groggy, falling asleep in that chair trying to knit, or in bed trying to sleep it off, or itchy or something. And then, you know, of work and everything in between. And then it was the holidays, and I actually decided not to go anywhere over the holidays because I was tired and itchy. And I'm finally starting to feel better. I just have one little bandage on. I had bandages all over myself, but I just have one little hive there, and I have one, like, you can't see it, but I have one like right there, and they're mostly going away. So it's mostly gone. I talked to my doctor, and it can last, this reaction, it's like a contact dermatitis, can last from 2 to 4 weeks. So it's been a little over 2 weeks, and I'm feeling a lot better. And I'm on the histamines for another week and a half. But the other thing that's been keeping me busy, and the reason I haven't gotten a lot of reading or knitting done either, is I had a storage unit a couple blocks from me stuff's just been sitting there, and it just came time that I needed to empty that sucker out. So starting in August, I'd go every other weekend, because I couldn't go every weekend because I have a bad back and I have to worry about that, and I'd get tired from that. And let me tell you. So I would go there, work on stuff, you know, clean stuff out. I took umpteen bags to Goodwill or sent it there or whatever. I got rid of so many things. What I didn't give away to Goodwill, and there were some things that were like way in the back that I couldn't get to. I ended up moving what was left in there out at the end of October, and then moved everything in here. And then my kitchen over there was like filled. A friend came over and was like, it looks like hoarders in here. And I was just, there was so much to go through. And I went through more stuff, threw away stuff, you know, but there was other things in there, dishes, things of my mom, stuff like that I want to go through. And I had to go through all of that stuff. And I couldn't do, and I didn't want to do it at the storage unit. I wanted to slowly go through stuff. So for the last month, I've slowly been going through different boxes. I finally got rid of every cardboard box out of my apartment, because I moved about 30 boxes. It's a lot for a small apartment, let me tell you. And some, like, you know, those big giant Ziploc storage bags. And oh, I wanted to show you, because that's one of the reasons I wrote it down, is I had 2 hand knitted things in there that I wanted to show you. One was the first sweater I ever made. So I found that in my storage unit, and then I didn't mean to put that in storage, but it got put there. The other sweater that got put in the storage that I didn't mean to put in there either. It's always the way when you go to storage, and then, I mean, literally, I didn't visit that storage unit for 7 years. So the other one, and I can see it right over there, is, it's in a plastic bag and stuff. I can't get to it easily. I'll pull it out and put it on the side here for the next time I podcast, and I'll share it with you guys. When I graduated from art school, one of my really dear best friends in art school was Norwegian. Her family lived in Norway, and her mother knit me and another girl hand-knitted Norwegian sweaters. They are gorgeous. It still fits. I can't believe it. It was a lot bigger on me back then, but I love this sweater. It was the first hand knitted thing I've ever gotten. I've treasured it all these years. It's over 20 years since I graduated from college, and it is still one of my most precious things. That's like things like that I had to go through storage to get, to find, to keep, and you couldn't, you know, and that was buried in a box, and I had to bring that back here. So I have 3 more like Rubbermaid totes. 4. I'd say I have 4 Rubbermaid totes to go through. So there's some dishes and stuff in there. And then the reason those haven't got put away is because I want to wash everything first, and I don't have a dishwasher, so I have to do everything by hand. So I need to wash all those dishes, put all that stuff away, find places for stuff. If I can't find places for stuff, get a place that picks up for charity, to come here and pick stuff up, because I have 2 more bags to go to charity, some books, some clothes and stuff, and then I've thrown some things away. But one of the reasons I started rereading Mr. Darcy Takes a Wife is I found that paperback in my storage unit And even though I love the book, I had to give the book to Goodwill because this place, I don't have a spare bedroom or a garage or a living room or a den to put any of this stuff. I would love to have an extra room where I could have wall-to-wall bookshelves or wall-to-wall yarn or whatever, but, you have to make really brutal decisions on that. So, and then I probably have my Kindle around here somewhere, right within hand's reach. It's usually with me somewhere. So, between my Kindle, even though you can see, I have tons of books back there. There's books up there. I've 2 shelves right here full of books, but I had to really keep like coffee table books or books that had a lot of sentimental meaning to me. And as much as I like that book, I can rent it audio, either buy it on Kindle and keep it digitally or listen to it like I am from the New York Public Library. So I definitely made a lot of those hard decisions. When I go through, I probably have, like I said, I have 3 or 4 more bins to go through, and then I'll do another go through once I put stuff away, if I can keep it or not. And so this will be like the 3rd purging. That will be the 3rd purging. So that's what's actually, those 2 things have taken up a lot of my time in the last 2 weeks. And I'm hoping that I have 2 more weekends of storage stuff to deal with. And then that'll probably take me to Christmas, and I'm not doing anything like that over Christmas. I'm watching Harry Potter movies and knitting and being with my family. So that's sort of what's been happening with me. And I hope all of you are having had a wonderful holiday if you're in the United States. If you haven't had Thanksgiving in the United States and you're watching this, I hope you had a wonderful month and your knitting and everything is going well with you. I really enjoy sitting and sharing with you. I said this before, it's something I never thought I would do. But I love it. I love being a part of this community. It's a really special place, this community. And as much as there's negativity on the social media and online communities, we have a really precious corner of it, and I'm really grateful for it. And I will talk to you guys in a month. And if you stuck with me for this whole hour, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I know how much I enjoy all the podcasters I hang out with. And I will talk to you all probably in 2 or 3 weeks, because I want to podcast before Christmas and all that gets crazy. And I'll talk to you all soon.